Hey guys, I'm Mike Curtin. This is the Brew World Order podcast, and today I'm with Joe Winiarski of Mystic Ways Brewing in Percy, PA. Joe,
Hey everyone, how's it going? Good. Thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate this, bud.
Yeah, man, thank you for making this work. I know we went back and forth for a little bit trying to make it happen, and
It was
finally,
mostly my fault.
no,
I'm a
no,
pain in
no,
the
no. I'm
ass with
I'm
texting.
I'm crazy busy, man. I'm crazy busy right now.
Okay,
My head's been spinning, so I'm glad we can make it work.
cool.
So,
Me too.
can you give us a little breakdown of you and like where you grew up, how you got started and how you got into owning your brewery?
Sure, no problem. Grew up in Northeast Philly. I lived in Philly for probably the past, I guess I lived there for 20 years, and I moved into Bucks County, which is a suburb, I guess like northeast of Philly, I'd say.
Okay.
After that, that's kind of where I've been since for a while. Um, uh, Before brewing, I was an ICU nurse for like a good, I'd say 8 to 10 years, maybe. I kind of lost count.
Okay.
So on the side, when I wasn't nursing, I was pretty much looking for a new hobby. Brewing became that hobby, and it pretty much evolved into where I am today, opening a brewery. So that's the
Very
kind of the
cool.
short story, very short story.
Yeah. And I don't know how old you are now. Sorry to put you on the
39. It's
spot
all
like
good.
39.
Yeah, the gray hair throws people off.
Same.
Cool,
Same.
man. Awesome.
1983.
Cool. I'm May.
Nice. I'm April, so
Cool. Oh,
perfect.
yeah, you got me beat. That's cool.
So, growing up, I mean, how far um into your life did you decide to move out of Philly?
I'd say probably in like my early 20s, I'd say. So I've been out of Philly for a while.
What was the craft beer game like in Philly
Well, it's funny
before
because
leaving?
it it was very much non-existent.
Right.
I'd say that for me, my early drinking days were really my favorite. The only beer I really liked at bars was really Yingling.
Right.
Um, I'd say my introduction into kind of like craft breweries or proto craft breweries was Lion's Head. I had a couple friends at the time who were like, "Yo, you gotta try this beer. It's like Yingling, but it's a little bit better and cheaper." I guess cheaper was really the selling point.
Right.
And so I got an Alliance at that point. I'm also a musician. I play in some bands, or I used to. I
Very
don't
cool.
now. But
Right.
uh, I was playing with this one band. The guy worked in a distributor, and they started getting a lot of the craft beers. Back then, we didn't call them craft beers; we called them microbrews.
Right.
Craft beer wasn't a thing until a couple of years into me discovering all this stuff. Or maybe the term was around for a while, but I never heard of it. We just called them microbrews. So I'd say my eye-opening moment was probably Anchor's Liberty Ale, where I was like,
Okay.
"Oh wow, holy shit, this is like different," you know?
Right.
Oh, sorry,
We're
am I allowed
talking.
to
We're
curse on
talking.
here?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely,
cool, man, awesome,
absolutely. Let loose. Curse.
crap,
Curse up a storm.
cool, awesome. So anyway, I'd say that's kind of what got me into craft beer.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, like, how far along was it till you finally started brewing? Was it like you got into home brewing, or was it
Pretty much,
that
yeah.
you?
So
Okay.
started out as a home brewer. I mean, for years, I'd say it took me from being a craft beer drinker to home brewing was probably at least a good 5 years. For a
Right.
while, I was saying, "Oh, I should start brewing. I should try this." And you say it for a
Right.
while, and you don't actually get into it. Then my mom, my sister got me a Christmas present. It was just a Mr. Beer kit, which I think probably
Right.
most brewers you'd
A
probably
lot of
talk
people
to
have
start
that.
out with that.
Yeah.
Not to shame Mr. Beer or anything. They're pretty cool, but I'm sure people like to evolve from there. So
Of course.
yeah, and that's kind of what got me into it. So Mr. Beer got my own extract kit after that, and then the rest is really just me um, being a little OCD and getting too much into it,
Right.
a hobby.
So, how'd you wind up? So before you opened Mystic Ways, you were
Yeah,
working at Red Lion Brewery in Quakertown.
you got it.
How did you wind up getting into there?
It's a pretty funny story, actually. It's kind of a weird story. I was playing a lot of gigs at the time, and I went up playing a gig in this place called New Hope, um, at Pennsylvania. It's a really cool town. I don't know if you've ever been,
Okay.
but
Never been.
uh, I was playing a gig there, and some guy went up seeing me who went up being friends with my mom when she was growing up. So we became friends
Crazy.
on Facebook, and he saw that I was brewing beer and posting pictures of beer. I post pictures all the time. This is a
Right.
new beer I brewed. It's a pilsner with cotton candy grapes, like dumb stuff like that.
Right.
He's like,
Right. Right.
hey, and so Red Lion Brewery at the time was their old brewer was leaving, and they were looking for a new brewer. And the guy who I knew wound up being friends with the owner. Her name's Jen, and so they called me and said, hey, you want to come interview? So I was like, yeah, sure. So my resume was pretty much a six pack of
Right.
stuff that
Right.
I brewed, and
Right.
so that's what from there it just really kind of opened up the floodgates for me. I mean, Jen's been pretty awesome. She's let me do whatever I want. I brew a couple of the staple beers there, but then I've really kind of taken it from there. I still brew for them, by the way.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that interview process, you said you brought a six pack of your own stuff, but was there like a trial period where they were like, let's try this guy out, or was it kind of just like, boom, right off the bat, you were like, ah, you're in?
It was pretty much boom off the bat. If there was a trial
Awesome.
period, I had no idea about it because she was pretty cool.
Right.
But I mean, when I went there, the brewing system was much different. It was a lot less efficient. So I went there. I was like, "Hey, listen, we gotta get a new brewing system.
Right.
This thing sucks." And she was really cool. She was like, "All right, let's do it." So she went ahead and head into it with me. Really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, and how did they go about doing that? It was like a funding thing, or did they just have the money to do it?
Pretty much. I think. Oh, I guess that doesn't answer your question. I'm pretty sure she had the money to do it. I mean, it was a small system. Red Lion Brewery is probably one of the smallest breweries you'll see. It's a barrel-sized brewery, so we only brew about 31, 35 gallons at a time.
Okay.
We have a bunch of tanks that size too. So,
Right.
it,
Really
it
small.
wasn't like a
Oh,
huge investment, like to doing like huge tanks or
right. Right.
anything like that. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And what do you think was that moment for you that sparked where you're like, man, I want to open my own place? What pushed you to do that? What was that exact moment?
Even before I was working at Red Lion, it was something my family and I had always talked about.
Right.
We talked about it for a while, and so I guess it was more of a gradual thing. I wish there was like a aha moment, but it was more like, oh, this beer's good. It doesn't suck. Maybe
Right.
we should do something more with this. Yeah, or at least
For
maybe if
sure.
that was after a couple of years. My first couple of beers probably weren't that great, but yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it was
So
more gradual for me.
so during that process of opening your own brewery, from the moment you said we're gonna do this, we're gonna
Yeah,
make this happen, to the moment you finally opened your doors,
yeah,
which was August. What was that? August 6th of twenty twenty
you
two.
got it. Yep, yeah.
Okay. Um, what was the hardest part for you?
Oh my god. I think from actually deciding, so we actually really decided like right before COVID that we were going to do this. So I own the brewery with my mom and my sister and I.
Okay.
So we were all three of us were kind of in a good situation where we're financially and everything, where we were like, all right, we can kind of do this. So it was right before COVID. We knew nothing back then about opening a brewery
Right.
besides anything that I learned at Red Lion. So the business aspect was like here. Um, People would ask us questions and we would have no idea how to answer them because it's stuff we never dealt with before, business plans, yeah, and dealing with different townships and zoning ordinances and all that stuff you don't even think about as a brewer, you
Of
know?
course.
Yeah, so I'd say from the time we wanted to do it, to answer your question, it was pretty much an uphill battle, huge uphill battle. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, with
It always seems to
everything.
be. It's always harder in the beginning,
Yeah,
until you start speeding up, and then you're like, all right, now you're starting to get the hang of things. But there's always obstacles. There's
exactly.
always going to be obstacles.
I'm sure most of the breweries you probably talk to have dealt with the same thing, but for us, it was just like really. I found probably a year into it, we started doing some beer fests, and people would ask us, when you open, and when you open, and it would be like, oh, like 2 months from now, and 2 months became 4 months, and 4 months became eight, and eight became 2 years, or
Right.
three, wherever we're at now.
So were you brewing your stuff when you were doing these beer fests? Were you brewing your stuff at Red Lion?
Red Lion, yeah.
Okay.
So at some point I told Jan, I was like, hey, listen, we're going to be opening up a brewery with my family. And she's like, "Oh, I really like you. I'd like you to stay." I was like, "Cool, yeah. If you're okay with me brewing two breweries, yeah." And she
Right.
was really cool. She's been supportive the whole time. So
Are you,
I kind of approached both of them differently.
right. Are you
Yeah.
still brewing there?
Yep. I brew
So
there and I brew here. That's kind of where I'm at now, Mystic Ways.
so is that's almost like a like a gypsy brewing type of thing, where when you have like a tap room in
Yeah,
at
you got it.
gotcha.
So it was I
Very
guess
cool.
Mystic Ways kind of started off Gypsy, unofficially.
Right.
We didn't have like the whole Gypsy license or anything, but we were just kind of, I guess, collaborating with Red Lions. It was really just
Right.
me.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
And where did you find the capital to fund your business?
some of it was money we saved, some of it was SBA.
Okay.
So between those two things, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
it's
All right. Yeah.
it's been a lot more than what we planned on. I'll tell you that.
Of course. And
Yeah,
I'm sure going from just being a brewer
yeah.
to actually being an owner, there are some things that you didn't expect. What's one of those things that you didn't think you were going to have to deal with? I know it's been a short while, but
I'll tell
just
you one thing. I've been pretty fortunate because uh, between my mom and my sister, we kind of operate like a robot with parts, So I mostly handle most of the brewing stuff. I do some of the business stuff. But my mom, and my sister have really stepped up to the plate and really have been knocking it out of the park with the business stuff. So
awesome.
I think my sister handles most of the legal stuff, some of the management stuff, and then my mom handles like a lot of the management stuff. They both kind of do this, I guess they both kind of intersect there. But I guess the toughest thing for me that I haven't really didn't really plan on was um, I guess a lot of the planning as far as like with the townships and stuff and doing like the zoning board hearing meetings
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and those were a little stressful. And
Yeah,
ours weren't
that's
bad.
what I hear.
They weren't bad compared to the stories that I've heard with other breweries. So we've been pretty fortunate.
For sure.
Percy Barrow, compared to other places, has welcomed us with open arms. Like they really did compared to other places. They rolled out the red carpet for us. But
That's
it's
awesome.
not. We still had some stuff to deal with. I don't know
That's
if I
awesome.
really
Now,
answered your question there, but
no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah.
yeah,
So from what I've heard, 90% of the people that I asked that to, they're telling me that it's permits and all that stuff, and
yeah,
going through jumping through hoops and make everything right for the whether it's the city, the state,
yeah.
whatever it may be. So
Hmm.
yeah, that seems to be the consensus that that's probably one of the hardest parts.
Yeah, I think the weirdest thing is, you'll have a government agency you've never heard of before knock at your door someday. Oh, you didn't hear about us? We're here
Yeah,
to check blah blah blah, and you're like, what? We never heard of you. I'm not going to
yeah, right,
mention any agencies or anything, but that's definitely been one of the things I haven't expected.
right.
All right,
No, so
you know about the TTB for Pennsylvania. It's the LCB, so you know about those organizations. Um, so that's stuff that you expect, but then there's like other ones that you don't expect, where you're like, what? Seriously?
yeah, right. Just
Yeah,
juggling paperwork.
exactly.
Sure. So did your mother or your sister have any background experience in that before taking on those roles?
A lot of management, I'd say. Some,
Okay.
especially my mom. She's done management for a couple businesses. She did a lot of medical management too, for like doctors' offices and hospitals, um, and a lot of project management as well. So,
Okay.
um, yeah. So a little
Very
bit,
cool.
yeah. I mean, my whole family were mostly medical. So as far as,
Gotcha.
I guess brewing was a new, and opening our own business is a new thing. But
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For
it's a
sure.
lot different world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's completely different.
yeah.
Um, so what are some qualities that you possess that make you a good business owner?
Oh my God. I think one thing I learned with nursing is really just um, dealing with people.
Right.
When you're an ICU nurse, you deal with families at their worst moments. So this is nothing. This is like a walk in the park.
Right.
As far as
It's a lot easier
dealing with customers.
situations.
Oh my God, you're not kidding. So I think that's kind of where it probably ends for me.
Right.
I really do heavily rely on my mom and my sister for a lot of the business aspect. I'm pretty fortunate there. Um, uh, I'm sure there's stuff I'll probably think of when we're off of this interview, and I'll be like, "Shit, I should have said that." But yeah,
Right. So, what do you think's the biggest lesson you've learned so far since opening?
Oh my God. Um, as prepared as you think you'll be, you probably won't be.
Gotcha.
One thing I'm
Okay.
doing right now is I'm catching up between our opening and there's a big car show here in Percy. And I'm also preparing for another Oktoberfest that's going on at McCool's Red Lion in October. So it's between catching up and trying to have stuff prepared. Yeah, you definitely can't brew enough, at least in my
Right.
experience, you know. So I think preparedness, time management are things that I'm kind of navigating right now, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure when opening, you had come across a lot of people that you knew in the industry that kind of gave you advice and whatnot. But who do you think's inspired you the most in the brewing industry?
Hmm. It's different. I'd say as far as the bigger breweries, as a brewer personally, not business oriented, I'd say, you know, I do like Treehouse. I do like a lot of those breweries.
They're
At
great.
Brew, I can't talk right. A lot of the New England's, and just how they do it, and you know how they manage all that is it's pretty impressive. Um, I'd say smaller on like a smaller scale though. Um, there's a lot of podcasts I used to watch as a home brewer where they're pretty experimental or reading books. Um, I'd say a lot of that stuff has influenced me as a brewer personally. I don't know. I feel like I'm pulling influence from everywhere though, especially outside of brewing. You know, music was my thing before this and photography. So I always felt like I was trying to step outside of the box a little bit, like trying to push things. So what I'm trying to do now in brewing is I'm brewing basic styles right now, like styles that people know. But over the next couple of months, I'm going to be experimenting a lot. I have a lot of ideas, mixing styles, and I'm not just trying to brew New England's. I'm trying to brew the next New England IPA. So I'm just trying to push it forward. And so I think with like music, like you know, people are always trying to discover new things, and it's kind of what I'm trying to do with brewing. Whether I succeed or not is going to be a whole nother story. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. So I
Gotcha.
think yeah, with influencing. It's just really just trying to look at other things besides brewing to see how people move forward.
You talk about podcasts. Did you listen to Beersmith at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Brad? Yeah, Brad's really
Brad
good.
Smith.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah, yeah. I've listened
That
to
was
his
definitely
stuff
one
a
of my
lot.
favorite ones when I was like in my prime of home brewing when I was going hard. Like I would
Yeah,
listen to that
yeah,
religiously, man. It's one of the great ones.
yeah. He's really good, and I like all the information he gives on his podcast too,
For sure.
because
Yeah.
some podcasts can be a little vague with brewing details and stuff. So I think he does a really good job, especially with his interviews.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And how do you define success?
Hmm. Well, I guess it's really just an achievement of your life's goals, you know?
Right.
And I would definitely think opening a brewery, especially when you decide to, or when you become a home brewer and fantasize about doing it. I'd say I'm pretty much there. Um, I'd say at least part one of it, you know? I think that part two would really delve into the experimental thing and trying to create my own niche in this whole world of, you know, thousands of breweries that we have these days. So I'd say success at that point would really be me trying to push forward. You know, I don't feel like I'll ever achieve it. I don't feel like I'll
That's
ever
good.
achieve it at all. You know?
Yeah. It's always something behind you pushing you forward, man. That's great.
Yeah,
That's absolutely amazing. I feel the same way.
yeah,
Never being satisfied where you're at, you know.
yeah, yeah.
But
I feel you there, man.
yeah, I mean, with that being said, um, that becomes a little stressful at times. Just constantly moving, moving, moving.
It
Is
definitely
there
does. Yeah.
is there a need for a mental break, and what does that look like for you?
That's a good question. I guess the short answer is yes. I don't know if I ever get that because I dream about this stuff. You know, I literally have dreams about it. Then I wake up thinking about it, and it's really my driving force. You know, when I'm you know
Right.
what little time I'm not spending doing other things like music or anything these days. You know, it's really brewing. I love what I do. I really do. It doesn't feel like I work a real job. You know,
That's awesome.
you know it's pretty cool. So yeah, I don't know. I hope I answered your
No,
question there.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
cool.
I
Yeah.
mean, that answers my question. I
Okay,
mean,
cool.
yeah.
You're good, bud.
So you talked about your growing up in Philly, and Yingling was your beer. But was
Yeah.
there a specific beer that was your gateway beer that like kind of opened your eyes and kind of said, "This is I want to start venturing out and finding new stuff."
Yeah, I would say the beer that was kind of like the gateway beer was like I think it was the anchor beer that I said earlier, probably Liberty, or I'd say after that, um, probably what the hell is it called? What's the brewer? Actually, I had it in New York. The brewery that makes the engine oil. It's like a porter. I forget. It's called engine oil or something. What the hell is it called? I'd say that beer was really yeah. That beer for me was like really I got to make porters like this. That porter was really back then when I first had it. It was like an eye opening beer where it was it was just something else, you know. And for me, I was like into a lot of those darker beers at the time. At that time, I really wasn't crazy about IPAs.
It wasn't
Now I love
the
everything.
old engine oil, was
That's
it?
it. That's it. Yeah,
Yeah,
old engine oil. Yeah, that porter.
Haverston.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. I couldn't remember the
Yeah,
brewery. Sorry to Haverson.
yeah. No, no.
I
Yeah.
remember the
I,
can. What the can looks like.
yeah.
So I'd say that beer was an
I just
eye-opening
pulled it up
beer.
because I was curious. I was
Yeah.
curious. Yeah.
For me, I wasn't into IPAs for the longest time. I slowly got into them. A buddy of mine who's a big craft beer trader, he first got me into Hetty, and Hetty was kind of a cool beer.
Yeah.
Then after that, he's the one who got me into Treehouse and everything else. So that's my buddy Damon. He got me into all those beers, and I'd say those beers were really eye opening. You know, especially the New Englands because they have this thing where they just glow. They have this glow to them if you look at them in the right light, and you could tell a good New England just by the way they look. Or at least I feel
Right.
like anyway. And then from there, it's the aroma and the flavor. So it's weird because there's a lot of gateway beers at multiple points in my life. It's funny because when I go to a regular bar that doesn't have any craft beer, I'd say these days my go-to is probably Miller Lite. I actually really enjoy
Really.
it.
My I try to. I've had this conversation with people before about
Yeah,
Coors Banquet beer.
yeah. Everybody says that too. Yeah, and I haven't had that one too much, but I got to try it out because I've
Yeah, that's like out of like the main out of the main beers, and when you
yeah
don't they don't have anything. If they have that, that's a go to, man. That's like one of my favorites. I remember they used to be like $1.25 for a
yeah.
tall boy, and you just go into the store and be like, "Here's $5, grab four of them," and you had yourself a night. So
That's
that's
cool.
that's the way I used to go. I mean, that's how it started off. Because it was like nobody really everybody drank, Coors Light,
Yeah.
and then you bring that around and be like, "Oh, what's that?" And it's got way more flavor, man. It's totally different.
There's a YouTube video I watched recently of a guy who does it. He has a craft beer channel. You might know what's it called? I think it's the Craft Beer Channel or something like that. The guy's from the UK, and he did a whole blind testing of all of the U.S. bar beers like Coors and
Right.
Yingling and Miller, and his number one beer was Coors Banquet.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an amazing beer. It's an
Yeah.
amazing beer. I actually did a couple of interviews with guys in Denver,
Okay.
and they were talking about how great they are too to the craft beer like breweries that are opening up. They're very welcoming, and then
That's
you
cool.
guys need anything that. So I mean, I still haven't done the tour yet, but I heard it's
Yeah.
in Golden, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's amazing.
That's
So
cool. Man, I would love to do those macro brew tours. At
yeah,
some point, I will when I venture out of Percy. We had the
right,
same experience with the local brewery here called Free Will.
okay,
They're probably one of the biggest breweries in Bucks County here, and they've been nothing but welcoming to us. Their whole staff has been here. The owner has been here. They've all been super nice. Every single one of them has talked to us. Nothing but
right.
cool. So yeah, we've been pretty fortunate in that respect.
That's awesome, man. It's
Yeah,
great. It's like having like a big brother. Like, hey, we've been through this before. Here, you need any advice? Here it is. There it is. It's great. That's great
yeah,
to have.
yeah. Super cool.
So you've been brewing for quite a long time now. If you
Yeah.
had one homebrew tip to give to somebody, what would it be?
I'd say ferment in your kegs. Ferment in kegs as quickly as possible. I'd say my last year or so home brewing, um, I wasn't doing plastic. I stopped bottling, and most of my primary fermentation was in kegs. And you can get floating dip tubes these days to, if you're worried about
Right.
the sediment on the bottom clogging your lines. I'd say ferment in kegs. It's the next closest thing you'll get to, um, big stainless steel kegs like these guys.
Right. Right.
Um, Definitely ferment in kegs. Temperature control is key. I'd say that's a huge thing. That will
Yeah.
really distinguish you from the people who just kind of put their home brew in a closet and let it ferment at whatever temperature. Yeah, the more you can control your temperature at every aspect is really going to kind of make you stand out.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
And I know you just opened recently,
yeah.
but what do you think the future will be like for you, and where do you want to see your brewery go?
It's funny. As far as the Mystic Ways, um, we have a pretty cool tap room. I don't know if you looked at pictures of it online yet. So it's really just evolving our tap room. I don't have plans to expand like a lot of people do, like expand to production size brewery. And
Right.
I think a brewery that really does it right these days is Troon. They got like a really good following. They sell their beer really quick, and they don't look like they're expanding too much, and they're just kind of operating small. And for me,
Right.
I don't know how I would control my product if it was any bigger than it is now. You know, I feel like if I had to put everything in kegs and just ship it off somewhere or something, I really feel like the quality would go down. I'm really happy with the quality that I'm getting at Mystic Ways so far. And same thing goes for Red Lion.
Awesome.
For Red Lion, we are going to expand more there. There's a hardware store. So at Red Lion Brewery, we're the in-house brewery for a restaurant called McCool's at the historic Red Lion Inn. It's a
Yes.
old restaurant that predates the Revolution, I believe. Um,
Very cool.
yeah, it's a really nice atmosphere. I love it there. So we're eventually going to move. There's two plans to either move into. There's a hardware store across the street, which will be Red Lion Brewery proper, or the owner of McCool's has a church that we might convert into a brewery. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to it, so it's kind
That's
of
awesome.
yeah, it
That's
should be
very
pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
The sanctuary is really cool. It'll be a nice space. So we got
Yeah.
lots of
Right.
cool plans if that could work out, but that's not a couple of years down the line at least.
Right.
So Red Lion Brewery will probably expand more. The lagers go pretty fast there, so I'd say that I'm going to make that a little bit more lager focused. I would say.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they're both two different breweries, two different plans. You know?
Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel like lagers usually go fast.
yeah,
I mean, just in my personal opinion, I mean, I feel like when you grow up, you're growing up, it's like the first beer you're gonna try is like probably like a Bud or something
yep,
like that, and it's either gonna be a lager or a pilsner 99% of the time. Nobody's trying like a stout on their first time out, you know.
exactly.
So I feel like people grow up and they just like, I know what I like. It's
Well,
this.
funny story about that. Before I drank any beer, I was young. I'm not going to say how old I was, but my mom was like, "Listen, if you're going to drink beer, you got to do it right." And she was the first person to give me a Guinness. So I mean, back then, craft beer wasn't really a thing. She's like, "All these other beers suck. You got to try this." And so she
Right.
put a Guinness down in front of me, and it was actually at this place in the Poconos, and they pour it with the Shamrock, but they do a really good job pouring it. So like, she gave me
Right.
like a good first proper beer. It wasn't just like me going to a kegger. I think
Very
that was
cool.
my sister's experience, probably.
Yeah.
But
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Are you Irish? No, are you only just Polish?
Mostly Polish. I think German and Irish. I haven't had a DNA test done, but that's kind of what my family tells me. So I guess that's what I am. I'm a little part Irish.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
if somebody came to you, which I'm sure they have already, and asked you for advice on opening their own brewery, what would you tell them?
Oh man. You kind of learn as you go. If you can talk to other breweries and get some points about, I guess that's kind of why they're coming to me. But as far as like dealing with any of the townships or ordinances and stuff like that, I think you don't know that I think you just learn as you go. I think that's the way everybody's done it, and it's great if you can find somebody who will take you under their wing, which we found. There's a brewery called Stickman, and they really helped us out with a lot of stuff. Um, as far as dealing with, you know, like ordering stuff or having food. We weren't even going to have food here at Mystic Ways, and after talking to them, we decided that we were going to have a small kitchen. So,
Right.
any tips and tricks you can get from any other brewery, and the most you can learn from people is really what's going to help you the most. It'll kind of get you ready for any pitfalls.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I feel like
yeah,
having a small kitchen is probably a great idea because, after a couple of beers, people just they want to nosh on something. So
yep. And that's
not
what
a
we've been
horrible
hearing.
idea.
That's what we've been hearing at Mystic Ways here. We're
Right.
hearing that people, because our kitchen is just about to be open. We just got our oven. It's a really cool oven, and but we haven't had food for months besides giving people pretzels and stuff like that.
Right.
So one of the things they say is, "Man, I'll hang out as soon as you guys have more food or everything." So yeah, people are yeah,
Perfect.
they did food and beer definitely go well together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, well, I hope it continues to work out and you get more and more people coming in for food and beer.
Thanks, man.
Um,
Appreciate it,
yeah.
Mike.
And I'm sure you've had plenty of funny stories being in the beer industry. Did you have one for us?
I kind of have two.
Okay.
I'll try to
Bring it
keep
on.
them. I'll give you an actual direct beer story. I guess it's not that funny. It's just more being me like a. It's more of me being like a klutz. Then the second one is really just a funny interview. So when I was first homebrewing, I loved pumpkin beers, and I still do. I know people hate them, but I used to cook food on the grill all the time with wood. So we'd cook with like our, any type of steaks we had with wood. And if you cook with
Awesome.
wood, it's so amazing. So my idea was like, oh, let's cook the pumpkin with wood. It'll be a perfect beer. It's going to taste awesome. So we go through all this trouble, home brewing, cooking the pumpkin with beer, with beer, duh. We cook the pumpkin with wood. Then we add it to the mash and everything. Beer smells great. It ferments and everything. I bottle it. This is probably, geez, it had to be like the fifth beer that I made. And cracked the bottle open, and it was the worst beer I've ever had. It was so disgusting. I was like,
Really?
oh, it just tasted like a huge smoke bomb. So I dumped all the bottles, and as I was dumping them, I'm like, you know what? I just gotta save like one or two. I gotta save one or two because I put so much hard work into this beer. I'm not getting rid of it. And one important lesson that I learned, actually, I probably could have put that into your home brewer question, or I guess brewer question
Okay.
in general, is time fixes most things. Because
Really?
I tasted that beer a year later, and oh my god, dude, it was killer. It was
Really?
so good. Yeah, it was probably one of the best pumpkin beers I made. I should probably bring it back at some point. I haven't brewed it since, but I
Please do.
remember. Yeah, I remember it was so good. I guess the other funny story is I was getting interviewed by there's a you can find it on YouTube. It's this show called What's Brewing, and um,
Yes.
it's done by the local sports channel here on radio, but I guess it's like a side thing that they do. And
Okay.
that interview, the woman who interviewed me was great. Like, she was super professional. Hey, I'm blah blah blah. This is for What's Brewing, and she had this whole spiel. And then she goes to ask me a question, and I was stumbling through all my words. And the poor girl so they had to stop. They're like, you want to do it again?" I was like, "Yeah, definitely." So she does her whole spiel again, and then I start talking, and I start stumbling again, like I am now. And finally, after the third time, I got it, but I felt bad for her. I guess I was talking too fast or something. Who knows?
Yeah, man.
Anyway,
Well, you did great right now, so
yeah.
no worries.
Thanks, man. I guess I'm
But
learning.
definitely bring back that mystic,
A
that
pumpkin
mystic
smoked
the
beer,
pump
whatever the hell it
smoky
was.
Smokey
Yeah,
the pumpkin.
Smokey the
Smokey the
pumpkin.
pumpkin.
There you go. That's great.
There you go. I love it.
Named. You
Um
saved me about like a whole hour trying to think of a whole beer name.
yeah. You can have it'd be like a bear with a pumpkin head
Yeah,
as the thing. There you go.
that's
Perfect.
hilarious.
Works.
Should hire you for
Um
marketing.
yeah. I'm horrible at it. Don't hire
No,
me.
you sound like you're better than me because it would have taken me an hour to figure that one out.
I'm sure somebody would help you
Or if
out.
I would have
I'm sure.
even. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I have a little segment called Quick Fire 5.
Okay.
5 quick questions, all beer related.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
Let's see how bad I fail this.
All right. Yeah, I don't think you can fail it, but here we go.
Go for it.
Somebody comes into your brewery.
Yeah.
What's the beer you recommend they try?
I'd say right now we have a beer called Bending of Minds. It's a New England IPA. I used a brand new yeast for it. It's called Helio Gazer. It brings out a lot of the thiol flavors in hops, and we use a powder called Phantasm powder. I'm sure most brewery people have heard of it, but it's basically made of Sauvignon Blanc wine skins. It's powderized, and it's pretty killer right now. I feel like it's getting better with age. When we first tapped it, it was pretty new, but now that it's aged and it's kind of for like a week, it's
Right.
really coming to its own, and I'm super happy with this beer. Can't
It's
recommend
weird.
it
They thought
enough.
you usually IPAs you got to drink them right away. Drink them fresh, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I can tell you that now this beer is really coming to its own, and I'm super proud of it. It's
that's
hard for
awesome.
me to recommend one, but if it's quick, yeah, get to New England.
Any secondaries that you recommend?
Yeah, I would say my personal favorite is a beer that's about to kick. It's called the Redanian Lager. Um, it's it's just a good, simple amber lager that really, really drinkable. For me, it's my probably my go-to.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And if you can collaborate with any other brewery on a beer, who would it be?
I'd say, good question. Right now, probably I really love either Monkish. I don't know if they're doing collaborations anymore. I haven't been following them. Either Monkish or probably Hudson Valley. Hudson
Hudson
Valley, their
Valley.
sour IPAs are really cool, man. So I'd like to collaborate with them. But I mean, yeah, I'd say those two are the two top off the top of my head.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
had them recently. My buddy
Oh,
went up
cool.
there and he brought me back a couple of IPAs from them. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think they're pretty original.
right.
I think they do it really good.
Favorite style of beer?
I'd say if I have to pick one, stouts. Love
Stouts.
stouts. Yeah, man. I love stouts. Yeah, stouts were always my go to
Right.
since I've been brewing from the beginning.
I love me a good stout, man.
Me too.
Barrel aged imperial
Oh,
is
yeah.
one of my favorites.
We have a beer that we opened with called Super Duper Massive Black Hole. And yeah, it's an imperial stout. It's like 13 something percent, but we saved some of it and put it in a rye whiskey barrel. So we're either going to release it around Christmas time or probably maybe a year from when we opened for our anniversary. We'll see.
Sounds delicious. Sounds delicious. Uh, t- 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 I was gonna ask you favorite name you've come up with for one of your beers.
Oh man, um, I don't know if I should say this one.
I like the
Uh,
one you just mentioned, but
yeah, Super Duper Massive Black Hole. I do like that one. Um, I've been happy with some of the beer names I've been coming up recently. We have a sour that's actually just getting tapped today. I haven't posted pictures of it online yet, but it's called Blue Donkadonk, and
we don't.
it's a sour ale with um, blueberries and blackberries. So that's pretty cool. What are some of the other ones? I forget. I'll remember as soon as I get off this interview. I'm sure I'll be like, oh, I should have
Right.
mentioned that one. But yeah, extra
All
snarky
good, man.
bastards and ESB.
Huh?
Yeah, extra snarky bastard. I kind of like that one.
That's you snorky bastard.
Yeah, that's on tap right now.
And the last one is you have one keg of beer to hold you over for a 2 week quarantine. What beer are you choosing? Desert
Uh,
Island beer.
oof. If it's a desert island beer, I'm going to go with probably that Redanian lager or some type of pilsner. I'd say I did a pilsner a while ago with that I'm going to be bringing back that was conditioned on cotton candy grapes. So I'd say that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So probably some type of pilsner or lager. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, that's all I got for you, brother.
Cool. Mike, thanks for having me. Can I mention one thing real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. McCool's is having this Oktoberfest that I'm super excited about. It's a pretty legit Oktoberfest. It's going to be a car show, auto show with a whole slew of German stuff. Like they're having a whole bunch of German food. the German bands and stuff like that. So it's going to be a
Right.
really cool Oktoberfest. We're going to have a bunch of beers there. It's going to be Mystic and Red Lion Brewing. Um, yeah, so that's October 1st, starts at noon.
October 1st.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah.
Awesome, man.
So
I
yeah, I think
will. I will definitely be posting that up on my social media as
cool,
well. So
cool. Thanks, Mike. But thanks
thanks,
for
man.
having me, man. I really appreciate this. It's been cool.
Thank you for being on. Thank you for taking time. I'm glad we made it work finally. You know.
Thanks, man, and good luck with
Yeah.
your new home.
Yeah. I'm Mike Curtin for the Brew World Order podcast here with Joe Winiarski.
Cool.
Got it. Winiarski of Mystic
You
Ways
got it.
Brewing in Percy, PA.
Cool.
Thank you, brother.
Cheers, everyone.